Hi, Karen Flaherty from Living by Human Design. Hope you're doing well. Today in Human Design Weather, we're going to be talking about the gate 15, the gate of the love of humanity. Let's go. So this week we've got the sun in gate 15, which is the love of humanity, otherwise known as the gate of extremes. And it started this morning, June 19th. Very appropriate, actually, to be starting on June 19th, the very first time that we're celebrating Juneteenth as a nation. And it runs until June 24th. The Earth is in the gate 10, which is the gate of self-love. So this whole week is a very sweet week, really. It's all about love, the love of humanity, self-love, and enthusiasm is still in this entire channel of transitoriness, which is the gates 35 and 36, is still in, which makes us all manifestors, or at least feel like manifestors. So we start the week with those two centers defined, the throat and the solar plexus. So we are still going to feel quite emotional, and we will have the throat energy, which makes us feel like manifestors. And just like last week, we felt like manifestors. But now it's tempered a little bit by the gate 15, which is right here coming off the G center, the bottom of the G. And this is all about being in the flow. It's about the love of nature. It's about having a big aura. And so people who typically have this have a big aura and have usually also, especially if they're born in this conscious sun gate, they'll also have the gate 10, which is all about self-love. And self-love is almost the base of this one. It can be guilt and blame and things like that, and self-obsession, actually. But when we're in self-love or we're loving ourselves, we actually can lift ourselves and empower others. And it's a very nice energy to have. It's a very sweet energy to have. It's a very empowering energy to the people around you. So between the gate 15 and the gate 10, it's really a very aura busting, nature loving, humanity loving kind of energy. It's the kind of energy that wonders why we even have wars, right? It's the kind of energy that actually this week in the history, I found that one war actually ended, or at least the combat stopped. So it's that kind of energy. It's the kind of energy where everybody says, wait, what are we doing? What's really going on here? And so that energy will be in all week with the throat and the solar plexus. So if you do have the open solar plexus, usually, as I do, be aware. Be aware of your emotions. They might be a little more. You might feel a little more emotional this week than usual, but you will also have that throat energy defined, which gives us all a little more, a little something to talk about. So as I was saying, with the sun in the gate 15 and the earth in the gate 10, it comes together to create what we call in the incarnation crosses the vessel of love, and the gate of also the cross of extremes and the cross of prevention. So this is this love of humanity, as I like to call it, because it is one of the four love gates that come off the G center. It's also called the gate of modesty or the gate of extremes in the original I Ching. And the reason is that, actually, if I go back to a slide, I can show you that the gate 15 is here, and the other half of that channel is the gate 5. And the gate 5 is all about rhythms. The gate 15 is all about extremes. And you put them together, and we have basically people and plants and animals. Everybody, every sentient being actually has this 5 and 15 in their makeup. And it's what allows us to be in the flow of nature, the flow of the earth, the flow of Gaia, basically playing with and living with and working with, hopefully, the rhythms of nature, so that we're getting up and going to bed when we're supposed to, right? But that we can have extremes, so that if we want to stay up late, we can. If we want to go on a trip, we can. But the usual flow of life is such that, we go to bed at a certain time, we get up at a certain time, we brush our teeth, we have our coffee, we, do the things we usually do in the morning, we exercise, we go to work, we we take care of the children, we do what's there to be done in life. And this is what allows us to be in the flow. But the one half, the 5, is all about rhythms and being in a very particular rhythm all the time. And you probably know people who have that particular rhythm all the time. And then the 15 is much more about the extremes, the earthquakes and the volcanoes, and the big storms and the hurricanes and the other things that Mother Nature brings our way. So it's all about the extremes, and that's a very different type of energy, as you can imagine. So it can be called modesty or extremes in the original I Ching. In the definitive book, they call it the quality of behavior, which expresses the proper balance between extremes, so that you could, just for example, get up late one day and go to bed late one day, but then other times you're going to get up early. And so you're able to balance between those types of extremes. Somebody with this 15 can do that. I like to explain it as the kind of energy where you could work all night, if you had to, on a particular project, go home, change, and get on a plane at 6 a.m. to be there to deliver the presentation. Whereas somebody with the gate 5, the other half of that channel, would find that very difficult to do. And so it's just that kind of energy. It's just back and forth. It's the as I said, the flow of life. It's the flow of nature. It's the extremes in nature. Just look at the cicadas that most of the eastern seaboard is experiencing over the last few weeks. Those are extremes of nature, right? They lay their eggs. The eggs will hatch in 17 years. As I heard one etymologist on the news talk about it, he said, there is no predator in the world that can work on that 17-year cycle. And so the cicadas have nobody who eats them, nobody who bothers with them. There's nothing in nature that causes them to go away. So they will be with us forever. They'll probably be with us long after we're gone. But they will be coming out every 17 years. And so it's that kind of rhythm in nature that is really about this 15. But it's also a big aura, and it's a big kind of energy. It's a very much encompassing, embracing kind of energy that really has us want to have the best for everyone, have this love of humanity, have this, belief perhaps that everyone should be treated fairly, everybody should be treated justly, everybody should have health care and basic income and a way to live. And it does sound a little socialist when you say it that way, but shouldn't everybody have some basic form of health care? Shouldn't everybody have some basic form of income and clothing and food that we can provide for everybody? That it's that kind of a feeling. And so don't be surprised if some things happen this week that actually allow those things to move forward. But on the other hand, it could be the opposite. It could be that some of those things are taken away. It just as easily can go either way. It's always a balance. In the gene keys, dullness is the shadow, magnetism is the gift, and fluorescence is the CD. And we'll talk about those in a minute. In the gate 10, we've got the gate of self-love. And as I said, this can be self-love. On the lower side, it can be, as the gene keys call it, self-obsession, which is really all about thinking of the self, vanity, and also blame and guilt. So not taking responsibility, but blaming and guilting other people about it. Naturalness is the gift, and being is the city. Just being yourself, being in the love of you and everybody else. So treading, or the behavior of the self, is the original I Ching. And so the underlying code of behavior here ensures successful interaction despite the circumstances. So no matter what's going on around you, because you're loving yourself, you'll be able to deal with whatever else is going on. So it's a very nice energy. If we look at the gene keys for the gate 15, we've got the gift as magnetism. And so Richard Rudd has this quote here: to live closely to the Earth's natural rhythms is to experience the wisdom and clarity that comes of moving more slowly through the world. And so this is an interesting way to look at it, because basically and he always gets into the details, which I actually love. I'm kind of geeky about that. But what he talks about is the Schumann resonance, which is a a wavelength that is able to be measured on the Earth, and it's usually 7.8 hertz. And so, if we are living close to the 7.8 hertz as human beings on the Earth, then we're in resonance with the rest of the Earth, with nature and with the animals and the trees and all of that. And but really, it would for most of us, at least, as he says, it would mean that we'd have to slow down. Most of us are not working at the 7.8 hertz, and most of us are, just living at something much quicker than that. And so, if we were to really try to be at the Schumann resonance, we'd have to slow down. So that was kind of a funny thing to hear. But it's possible. It's the kind of energy where some people are resonant with the birds and the caterpillars and the rabbits and anybody who's out in nature knows what I mean. That those kinds of animals don't run away from you. That those are it's the kind of people who have slowed down enough that the animals don't run away. They go to them, almost like a kind of a Saint Francis of Assisi kind of energy, right? Where he's just so I would say mellow, because I don't know that I would ever be close to the 7.8 hertz. I'm probably a little too quick for that, but those are the kinds of people who can be closer to that kind of energy. And so it's very sweet to see. It's a very lovely energy, and it's magnetic. It's magnetic because the animals and the nature really resonates with you. On the other hand, the dullness, which is interesting to hear about, because the dullness, which is on the lower side of the gate 15, is really about, it's not so much that the person is dull, but it's just a dull affect, right? It's a dull affect, almost, he compares it to depression, almost at that point of depression. And it's not that it's that there's anything wrong in particular, it's just a lack of acceptance of what the natural rhythms are. So he said only the human neocortex actually makes dullness possible, because the animals and anything else in nature, they're fine with that resonance. But it's the rest of us who don't like that slow feeling of resonance. And so our attitude affects life's events, and experience mirrors the attitudes, right? So attitude, he says, is one of the great mysteries of life, because its source is indefinable. Like, where does that attitude really come from? And the dullness is about repetition, and the repetition of daily life, not having the wonder or the awe that we would like to have with life, as opposed to feeling the dullness. So you can either feel the dullness and have that repetitive life and not like doing the dishes and the laundry and taking care of the kids and all that stuff, or you can delight in it and really be magnetic about it and have a flow of life that actually allows you to move in that magnetic feeling and attract everybody, attract nature, attract your children, attract everyone, friends and family, like that. So it's a very, very interesting gate, and a very interesting energy. It's a very loving kind of energy. So there are some people who are born in this sun gate. We've got, as I said, the vessel of love, the gate of the cross of extremes, and the cross of prevention. And so in here we've got Prince William from of Cambridge. We've got the actresses Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman. Now that actually must have been because I know they've done a few movies together. So that's a kind of interesting energy that they both have with the gate 15 in their sun gate. In their conscious sun. Alan Turing, he was a famous, I guess you would call him, physicist and programmer during World War II, who was very helpful in ending the war, but basically became a martyr for the work he did. Jeff Beck and Mick Fleetwood, who are both musicians. Carly Simon, another singer-musician. George Orwell, the author. Lou Gehrig, the baseball player, and who famously had Lou Gehrig's, what they now call Lou Gehrig's disease, which is ALS. Jean-Paul Sartre, Joseph Papp, who started the Shakespeare in the Park in New York, and Bob Fosse, who was another producer, director, and dancer, very famous in New York. So this week in history, from June 19th to June 24th, there were a number of different things going on. The most infamous, given that it's now a national holiday as of this week. It was in 1865. They actually took the on June 19th, and they made it into a, which I never heard this word before, a portmanteau, which was a combination of June and 19th, and made it Juneteenth, but marks the day that the troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, and the people living there finally learned that those the enslaved people who were living there finally learned of their freedom, because it was more than 2.5 years after President Lincoln had issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which was on January 1st of 1863. So it was just this past week that it was passed into law as a national holiday, with both houses of Congress and the president signing it in on Thursday. So on June 20th in 1999, NATO declared an official end to the bombing campaign in Yugoslavia. So that was what I was referring to before as the end of a war during this week in history. Also in 1944, President Franklin Roosevelt signed the GI Bill of Rights, which provided broad benefits for veterans of the war. Also, so in the spirit of a love of humanity, right, and making sure that everybody was taken care of. Also in 1970, Nixon lowered the voting age to 18. And in 1966, the civil rights marchers in Mississippi are dispersed by tear gas, which was an unfortunate occurrence. And in 1931, the Soviet Union and Afghanistan signed a treaty of neutrality, which unfortunately was not the last one they signed, but it was a treaty of neutrality that occurred there. So this is a week that should have a much sweeter energy to it, a much more loving energy to it. Of course, you can make it whatever you want, but it should usually, because it is around the solstice. Also this week, Mercury retrograde will be going direct. The Mercury retrograde that's in will be going direct on June 22nd. So we should all collectively breathe a sigh of relief. I've actually never experienced, even though I was born in Mercury retrograde, I don't usually experience it as other people do. And this is the first time during this Mercury retrograde that I've experienced more technological issues and seen so many people around me experience them. It's been quite a period of 3 weeks here. So I think we'll all breathe a sigh of relief when that goes direct. And other than that, have a great week and be well and take good care of yourselves. Thanks. Bye.